How beautiful it is. Oh, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. We are here expanding around the globe. I love it when that happens. Ewan and I have known each other for many, many years, since the 2010, 2012, and and all of a sudden we're back in conversation again. I think it's by divine plan, divine design. It's potentially cosmically indicated, and I'll talk more about that at some point in time. What a fabulous, fabulous moment to say hello, world. How beautiful it is. Those words, hello, world, are very profound and very symbolic for me. And that's another story. But they hold immense intensity and deep devotion. So, uh, let's do our invocation. This is an invocation, especially you, and that I have done from the moment of the beginning of Called by Love Institute. It's an invocation that invites spirit to direct the call and to move in us and through us. And it's a little bit based on the invocation written by Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity. And I've adapted it and made it my own, made it apply to my life as I understand it. And so in this moment, I am invoking the now and the present of pure being, the pure eminent spirit of the Holy Spirit and of life and of love and of wisdom. And we acknowledge this presence and this power, O beloved Spirit, and now erase our human limitations, dissolve them, and from your pure substance of love, bring into manifestation our world, the world, according to your perfect plan. And so it is. And so we simply invoke the presence and the power of the Holy Spirit to speak through each one of us, to direct our words according to what Spirit is nudging us, whispering in our ear, bringing forth. And I want Ewan and I to co-create this call because I know I'm very, very clear that co-creation is the aspect that is required for the next stages of evolution. It's not about superstars. It's not about even somebody having a great list, although those are convenient add-ons. It is about the power of spirit saying, now, now is the time, beloved one. See it, realize it, feel it in the depths of your heart, and let your heart show your mind the way. Come, Holy Spirit, come upon us. And so today I am so delighted to invite you to join me in this conversation with this incredible soul who happens to be half my age. Ewan, how old are you now? 43 or 44?
I'm 44.
44. Awesome. And I will turn 88 on my next birthday. It is half my age. How incredible that is. Talk about intergenerational. And talk about what we can teach each other because your generation is different than my generation. And there's a, a generation in between us, actually, because you're still in the middle of your second or the late stages of your second act, which is 25 to 50. And many of the people on the call are in their third act, which is 50 to 75. That includes Ross Hostetler and Hostetter. I put an L in there, and Ross told me one time it used to be there, but that was in the lineage of his ancestors, and it's no longer there. Ross Hostetter. He is the on the board of directors of Called by Love Institute and will be a person that has extreme power and awareness. The awareness is more important than the power because power without awareness can take you into ditches, as I think our country is doing right now. And so it's an amazing gift to see the minds that show up. And it's fascinating because some of the people who attend these calls and who listen to them on replays are extraordinary and take it to new levels, levels beyond which I have never gone on my own. For example, our guest Ann Ortley on astrology last week had about 700 people show up to watch the replay. Quite incredible, larger than any congregation I've ever had. 21 years as a senior minister at Unity in Tustin. Never had that kind of a congregation in one sitting. Things have changed in your generation, Ewan. You look at the world in completely different ways than I looked at the world in 1993 when I went to Unity of Tustin and had one of the most innovative and recognized ministries, churches in the Unity movement. Now it's half the size that it used to be then. Still innovative and still wonderful, still one of the best, I believe. But yet, what's happened is that the internet has come along. It wasn't even around when I went there in 1993. It was my son Bud who first built a website. So we somehow are linked in the timeless dimensions. You and I, Ewan, it hasn't happened accidentally. It is a coincidence of universal connection, I believe. And you can tell me if you even believe in those things. Some people don't believe in the things that I believe in. And that's fine because everyone has their own spectrum in this rainbow of colors. And I love to call the one I work with, and I think you understand this term, dancing all of the colors of the rainbow. How do you go higher and deeper simultaneously? How do you uncover the depth of every level when the light shines on the shadow of that depth one level deeper? It's all there. I am that, always already within us. And so today we're going to explore the flow of how all of that works We all bounce back and forth with each other with questions and answers or speculations and potentials. What I see is that answers evolve and awareness evolves. And awareness goes higher and awareness goes deeper. But it also, and this is where so many people on the human plane are, it expands in horizontal ways. Terry O'Fallon, who is one of my longtime teachers, and we've co-taught together sometimes, calls it a big balloon. She says, you don't just want a skinny balloon, it can't stand up on its own. The higher and deeper is a skinny balloon. You have to have a big balloon that understands all of the dimensions of opening and receptivity and the moments when it's time to let go and let God. Huge shifts in awareness as we dance the colors of the rainbow. So you describe yourself, and I love your description on your website. I'm a business coach, but not a conventional one. I work at the intersection of strategy and soul, helping you, that would be all of the people on this call and people who will listen to the replay. And you let me know that you'll be mailing it to your list when we send it out. And it may be you if you are ready to go deeper. And then there's a link right on your website that says, let's talk. And can you explore my writing? Oh, you can explore my writing as a place to start. I love your website. It is beautiful and informative. It shows the perfection of who you are as a beautiful, beautiful soul. And in the email that we sent out, we have six pictures that you sent to me. I asked you to send 6 or 8. You sent 6, and we're going to talk about those. And I added the 2 more pictures. The picture of the landing page of Living Loving Legacy, my first summit, which you were so instrumental in helping me with. I got to know you through Brett Thomas, a mutual friend. You came to this country one time and visited Brett, but you never came to visit me. I didn't disappear. Here we are. Next time you come to America, stop in Kansas City. It may happen, you know. Have a beautiful home with lots of room for guests. You can bring your whole family. How amazing, amazing life is. And Ewan, where would you like to start?
You, and thank you for having me on, Marj. This is fun. So the thing that's coming into my mind is a kind of meeting of the fact that you were differentiating our ages and how different our generations, the kind of the worldview we grew up in, and then the way that we met, which was, I think it was, yeah, 2012, 2013, and I was running like a very early online training program or training school, very small, for conscious entrepreneurs. Me and Brett were doing that together. And you came in with this idea for what became Living Loving Legacy. But you were on a steep learning curve yourself, working out how do you do this website thing and telesummits and emails, and that was all new to you. And we were, I guess, fairly early in kind of spotting that doing stuff online opened up all kinds of possibilities. You know, it's a different landscape back then. Now we all take it for granted. But that was a time when it was still quite new, and you were early in doing what you did and had such success with that series. And that is a difference between our generations, because one of the interesting things about my generation is I remember the world before the internet. Like that was my childhood. I was in my teens when the internet really started coming in. So computers, I was growing up with computers, but there was this world without this digital interconnection, which had many benefits, I think, some of which we may have lost. And yet we're in this amazingly different phase. And so I'm kind of aware of that viewpoint that I have, which is I kind of have a foot in both worlds. Like I grew up embracing technology and computers and then the internet big time. And I've seen what it's done to us for good and for ill. And so I feel like I have a kind of foot in the other world. And um, I feel like it's a ripe time to be inquiring into how are we living, what's amazing about now, and what have we lost, because I feel like we've lost some stuff too.
It's incredible to me that here you and I are again connecting because you have the skill of creating a profoundly beautiful website, which I'm very attracted to, and you have the skill of the putting in place the dynamics that keep in touch with your list, which I happen to be have been on it since for all of those years. I have listened to you or read what you've written, my one form of listening to you, over many years. And many times you send out 10 or 12 page articles on different themes and different subjects. And I've related to all of them. And sometimes I comment on some of them. You always respond to comments or often respond. And that's one of the ways that we have stayed connected over so many years, even though we have never met each other in person. The Living Loving Legacy didn't have Zoom on it because it didn't exist. We were on instant teleseminar. And I've kept it up because the callers, the people who were on that call were world famous, world class, the top of the pick. Jean Houston is an example. And when I asked her to be on it, she called me right back and she said, yes, it's about time somebody did this. No one had ever done that kind of a summit. And you and I, more than anyone else, were responsible for creating that website, which I call the best product we ever created. Brett was very helpful in creating the landing page and the colors and the multiple dimensions. I'll never forget him saying to me, you've included all of the colors of the rainbow up and down the spectrum. And so people have to look at the picture or go on the website. It's still up. I continue to pay what it costs to keep it active. But I love also that you've done the same thing with the website that you had where you were curious. This reflects me, where you were curious about some of the leading entrepreneurs of your time. And I called it co-creators. It's on the third page of the website. And and that website I clicked on, sure enough, it came up. And I thought, oh, I'm not the only one that treasures some of these things. I treasure these moments in time, which become moments of timelessness. So, do we want to talk about your book first, or do we want to go into your life first?
Let's start with the pictures and the life, because I think that'll set the frame
I
That'll
think
set
it
some
will
good
too.
frames for like the book comes out of all of that, so it'll make
Uh-huh.
sense with some of the a little bit of the backstory, and you'll probably get to learn some new stuff too that you probably don't
And
know about me.
what I always do is I hold up the one I'm going to talk about.
Hmm.
And that would be this one. This is your first picture. And I love this picture. You don't see the faces clearly, and that's okay. Uh, but what you write is so beautiful about your childhood when you were a baby. And the date of your birth, share it,
I was born 9th of April 1982
19.
in up in the Pennine Hills in Yorkshire, England.
Yeah, you were a baby. And in this picture, your parents are out in a field. Uh, you say my mum and dad. I love mum,
That's
M-U-M.
how the English say it. Yeah,
Uh-huh. And you were born in a commune, and it was sort of out in the country. They lived
yeah.
in a commune. They were way ahead of their time for their time.
It was an experiment, that's for sure. Yeah,
It's an experimental community. Are your parents still alive?
yeah. Both of them are still alive. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Do they still live in a commune?
No, in fact, they actually left that commune when I was still a baby, probably not long after that picture was taken. So I was about
This was
6 months
in
old.
uh, Yorkshire in the Pennine. Am I pronouncing that
Yep,
right?
the Pennine Hills. Yeah, those are the
Yeah.
hills between
And,
Sheffield and Manchester in the north of England.
and
Those are
they're
wonderful.
planting a crab tree, a crab apple tree for you.
Yeah.
Wonder if it's still alive.
I think the goats ate it, is the story I remember my mum telling me, unfortunately.
We have
Um,
beautiful crab apple trees here in Kansas City every spring. We have one that flowers, and we have a very large lot with a house that has full view of the street from both levels. And the street level where the garage is uh, curves down to a dead end cul-de-sac, and there's crabapple trees
hmm.
that we look at every spring in full bloom. So
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that
ever to
tree,
visit, you can come when the crabapple trees are blooming.
yeah, great. Yeah, unfortunately, that tree I think was eaten by goats, which lived in one of the houses too. But my dad planted an enormous amount of trees there that when I did go back and visit many years later were, huge, beautiful, mature trees. Because yeah, they were trying an experiment. It wasn't really a spiritual community. It was kind of more from, I guess, a political direction of wanting to have a different kind of setup. So they tried to live a very simple life, uh, living and eating together. The building was old railway workers' cottages, like terraced housing that the railway workers had lived in when they built the Trans-Pennine Railway. And they were kind of derelict. It's not. It's kind of a grey, cold part of England. It's not particularly desirable land, and so they'd got the buildings very cheap and made this, yeah, kind of idealistic commune where, yeah, they had goats and chickens and grew food and didn't have any television and, mucked in together and didn't have individual money even either. They It was collected, like, I think that's one of the reasons it didn't work in the end, unfortunately. But yeah, they didn't have their own money and lots of ideals. The other funny story about that beginning is, so my surname, Townhead, just sounds like a kind of regular surname. It's actually not. It's um, it's the name of the village that the commune was in, and a number of the families decided that, they were into independence and breaking from patterns. So they decided to name some of the children with their own surname. So my surname is different to my parents, and there are So I think there were five children named Townhead from three different families after the village. But other than that, it's not a surname. Like no one else is called that. So I really literally have a unique name. And there are now some second generation Townheads too, including my son. Um,
Amazing.
so it was an interesting beginning. But yes, they quickly actually moved to Sheffield, which is a nearby city where I grew up. But yeah, they were starting off on a kind of countercultural note and trying to look at different ways of living together and operating in the world.
The next picture is you at age 18. And so you're in your teenage years now, late teenage years, and you're canoeing down the river Wye. How do you
Why? Yeah, you say River Why.
River Wye with the gaffers? The gaffers is a men's group. This is another thing that's ahead of its time. Men's groups were not the ordinary.
Yep.
It's a men's group that you were part of in your teens and early 20s, along with your father. Your father was also in that men's group. So I think you had an unusual beginning in many ways. You were ahead of your time. You were blessed to be ahead of your time. And
Yeah.
your early childhood education led you to a university or a music degree. What do you talk to me about that? And that picture leads us to the third one where you're graduating and and you're 24 years old. So this is just before you go into this what we call the second active life. That was a phrase I thought I made up until I found out a place in India had done the same thing years and years before. Every 25-year stages. And so you're just about to enter stage two, and this is a graduation ceremony, and you're being given your degree by Sir Paul McCartney. Talk about the significance of where you went to school, why you went to school, and who he was.
Yeah. I I was never particularly interested at school in general. I found it a little dull and not so stimulating. So it took me a while to work out what I was going to go and study at university. I didn't go till I was 21. If I'd have gone straight out of secondary school, high school, as you guys call it, if I'd have gone straight out, I probably would have studied geography or something like that because I was good at it and kind of enjoyed it. But thank God I didn't do that. I took some time and I decided I wanted to go and do music because that was kind of my love at the time. My mum was an artist and involved in the arts and music growing up. For example, she was part of, when I was younger, she was part of do you know what Céilís are? It's like it's an Irish tradition of a kind of party dance. People would have them at weddings, and it's you'll have a band playing Irish folk music, and everyone kind of does the dancers' steps as they go, and someone calls out the steps. Okay, now twirl your partners. Now swap. Da, da, da. It's super fun. So she used to play in a Cayley band, and my parents were separated at that point, so I would go along with her as like a 7 or 8 year old and fall asleep backstage while they were playing because it was past my bedtime. So I grew up around music. She was always very, very encouraging of music, and I loved it and had some natural ability. So I just thought, well, let's go and do that. That was what I felt interested in. My mum, in particular, was very encouraging, and yeah, I set my sights on this university in England called the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, which Paul McCartney is the president of. I don't think he has a whole lot to do with the running of it, but it's in his old boys' school in Liverpool, and it was created as a as a place where all different artistic disciplines can kind of coexist together and make things together. My degree was actually a bit of an outlier. We kind of sat outside some of the frame, but I spent 3 years there, did a lot of music, and also learning how to do music in workshop settings, like with groups of people. I thought that was going to be the path. Uh, I used to write songs, um, guitar and voice mainly. I could play quite a few different instruments, and so I thought that was the thing. And I had so my just before that picture was taken, or probably around the time that picture was taken. In fact, yes, like I had my heart set on, okay, well, I want to get a recording contract and like be a musician. That was the dream. And but meanwhile, at university, I vividly remember this is a key moment in my life, Marj, that sets up how we meet later on. And I talk about it in the book, which is I was a little existentially lost at university, and one night I had this kind of lightning bolt moment where someone spoke to me, or spirit spoke and said, you want to change the world, don't you? You want to change things. And I was like, yes, yes, I want to make a difference. And I didn't know how to do it, and looked into all kinds of different directions. And then the synchronistic event was one night I'm writing an essay for my course, which I'm doing the night before because that was my habit. And I'm trying to fill up the word count as fast as possible. And we're supposed to bring in philosophical perspectives on this whole thing, and I don't really know anything about philosophy at the time. And then I realize, oh, I have this CD that my dad gave me from some American philosopher. I'll just try throwing that on and see if there's anything interesting. And that was an interview with Ken Wilber, the Tammy Simon Cosmic Consciousness CD set, which I listened to probably 100 times. I'm not kidding. And I listened to some of that, and it just gripped me. And finding his work opened all kinds of doors to me, to spirituality and psychology, which I'd had some exposure to, but like I found kind of like my doorway to it, and it opened up this whole thing. So I was interested in that at the time, but I set my heart on music and getting a recording contract, which is hard to do. And then another key moment, in fact, it was one of my first experiences of coaching, which is also how we intersected. Um, I was being coached by a wonderful man. Shout out to Julian Marshall, who also knows Ken Wilber's work and is involved in Integral. And he was a quite a successful musician in England in the 80s, and he was coaching me to help me. Like, okay, you want to make a thing of this, and I remember one call. He was trying to help me, like, okay, here's how you need to kind of progress, and here's the pathway you need to be walking along. And he was very wise. And I just had so much resistance, and I just wasn't, I was coming up with excuses and why it wasn't working, blah, blah, blah. And at the very end, he said, Ewan, do you feel like you have to be a musician? And suddenly I realized that I did feel like I had to be one, and that I actually didn't want to be one. And I remember crying in the shower after that call, going, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. I can do something else. And I think the very next thing I did after I got out of the shower is I went and read a book on the Enneagram, which I'd really wanted to dive into and hadn't because I was trying to obsess about my musical stuff. And so that opened up a whole different pathway, which I have not. That's the one I'm still walking today. So that picture kind of defines quite an interesting moment in my life when I essentially switched from my music path to one of spirituality.
And it's interesting that on Living Loving Legacy, one of the people was Roger Walsh, who happens to be Ken Wilber's best friend and knows him personally. And Roger and I used to have lunch or dinner at least a couple of times a year. And he would bring students to Unity of Tustin to walk the labyrinth and speak there sometimes, teach there. And the other person that was on that summit that you helped create was Russ Hudson, and one of the co-founders of the Enneagram in this country.
Yep.
And I read the book his partner wrote first, and then I read all of Russ's books. You were very much in the deep dive of those kinds of connections when you were
Yep.
working with me on Living Loving Legacy in those very early days. 2012, I think, was when it launched, or after that. And just amazing. But let's go through a couple of more of the pictures that you sent me. Picture number four was a picture of uh, you at age 34. Now you're in your second act, 25 to 50. So you're well into your second act, and you have this picture of your soul brother and Joel. Joel, your soul brother. And you're in the Holy Land. That's very fascinating. Jerusalem. I'm a deep lover of the Bible, and Holy Land has all kinds of deep meanings for me. And you and Joel later moved to Amsterdam together in 2008. And there you run the platform, web platform, Coaches Rising together for many years. And so this is that picture. And tell us about that one.
Yeah, so this is good. This will bridges over our meeting too, so I can fill some pieces in. So yeah, that was 2016. We just decided we wanted to go to Jerusalem and experience that together. Joel and I moved together to Amsterdam from the north of England in 2008. We met at a Ken Wilber meetup group in Manchester and just discovered
There's something
this.
really important in the gatherings of people who are potentially part of your next stages. You meet partners, friends that end up being lifelong. Terry Patton, for example, was ended up being that for me, who I met at an integral conference. And go ahead, tell us
Yeah,
about.
me and Joel actually hosted Terry in England before we moved to Amsterdam and had the blessed time to meet him and spend some time with him. What a beautiful soul. Rest in peace. Yeah, so we moved in 2008 together. When we met, there was like a click. In fact, he told me later on that he'd had this kind of vision for years that he was going to meet this soul brother who was like younger than him and tall and fair. And I meet all those descriptions, and we've been incredibly close since. So we moved to Amsterdam in 2008, in basically in pursuit of spiritual community. We were like, there's new stuff going on. But it's not really happening in Liverpool, where I was living. So let's move somewhere else. And we just decided to move to Amsterdam. I'm still here 18 years later. I didn't know I would be. But our path was very important. And then how we ended up in Jerusalem, this is a good bit of the story where we can intersect again, Marj. So just before we met, um, or around the time, yeah, right around the time we met, in fact, right around the time that I helped you write the copy for Living Loving Legacy. I was actually in quite an existential process at that time. I kind of felt very lost in a great number of ways and didn't really know what to do about it. And I went back to England for some time. For about 4 months, I spent kind of traveling between my parents' houses. They both live in rural Yorkshire, but different parts of it. I'd kind of spend time at each one. And particularly at my dad's, he lives in a beautiful old farmhouse, literally in the middle of the fields, looking out over a river valley, and it's a very special place. And I remember staying up there, and I was very lost. And I started reading a book called, I don't know if you know this book, called The Wisdom Jesus by Cynthia Bourgeot.
Yes,
Amazing.
I love her books.
Oh, amazing. And that gave me It was on my dad and my stepmom's bookshelf. That gave me, I would say, my first kind of connection with Christianity, like personally. I didn't grow up that way. We were essentially atheistic, though my dad was actually involved in some spiritual stuff and men's work and things. But by that point, my dad and my stepmom were deep spiritual practitioners, mostly on the Buddhist path. My dad was a student of Thich Nhat Hanh for a long time, but they were still also really interested in mystical Christianity and had various books. And I read that book, and it did something, and it woke something up. And then I wrote blogs about this a long time ago, but basically, I remember several times being outside and sitting in meditation and just asking for help. And then a voice started answering and started giving me responses. And I didn't really know who it was at first. After a little while, I worked out it was Jesus. And I didn't think kind of too much about it in a way, but it changed something really deeply. Like it was like I had the intuitive knowledge about this is how it works. You just talk to these spirits and these beings, and if your heart's open, you can hear them back. I kind of instinctively knew that, but my worldview didn't leave a lot of room for how that works. But I
You
just kind
mentioned
of went with it.
heart.
Hmm?
You mentioned heart.
Yeah,
So you were going into your heart, which
yeah,
is deeper than your mind.
yeah,
The heart has a greater intelligence than the human mind.
yep.
The divine intelligence that includes both, but divine mind includes both, but the human mind is limited. But you
Amen.
can ask, and you will receive. And Jesus came to answer.
He
I
did.
believe that totally.
Yeah,
I knew Jesus as my personal friend as a child, as a teenager, lover of my soul, you know, and oh, Jesus has always still is an important figure of guiding. And I often receive it when Jesus left this plane. He said, I will send you a comforter. And that comforter is the Holy Spirit. And that's what I pray to multiple times a day. Anytime I'm feeling uh, discombobulated, anytime I'm feeling confused, even irritated, if I just breathe deeply, take in that time to experience my breath, the I am that I am, whole shift occurs. So go ahead. Walking
yeah,
with you is a pretty sacred path.
yeah. And
And
it was
one more,
surprising to me because
oh
I didn't
yeah, yeah, it
I didn't
doesn't.
really know those things kind of spoke back. These, I didn't know they could talk back, and I didn't know that I would have a connection with him and that tradition. I never had any particular interest in it before. And so going to Jerusalem was a really important experience for me because I didn't really consider myself a Christian. I feel like I'm a student of many different traditions, but I have a close relationship with Jesus still. I still talk to him.
Yeah.
He is the most amazing presence, amazing, and so accessible. To fast forward a little bit in the story later in my life, more recently, it's also surprisingly to me, I got deeply drawn into shamanic work, which is also all about kind of communion with spirits directly. And I discovered that, oh yeah, I can talk to guardian spirits or guides the same way that I talk to Jesus is exactly the same mechanism. But he was kind of the first. Maybe it works that way for lots of people. I don't know, but he seems very available. And Mary too. The two of them just seem like they're kind of deeply available if you're ready and you want to speak and you want to hear. They're they are absolutely available to, I think, everybody.
And Terry O'Fallon's brother, Kim Barta, has done deep shamanic training, as has Roger Walsh, who wrote a book about it. And so I'm very familiar with all of that and how beautiful it is. And it is one of the ways to shine the light on the shadow that always emerges. Every time you go one level higher into the light, now I'm quoting another teacher, but that light that as you go higher shines the light on one level deeper. That's Thomas Keating. So I find I'm constantly interweaving all of these master teachers, all of these master paths. As a mystic, I recognize all of them as exactly perfect for wherever a person is. There's no wrong to any of it. It's just the soul evolving it through time. And let's go to the last picture, which I love this picture. This is more current. This picture is one where you're 42 years old and you're still in the second half, a second stage of your life. You haven't hit 50 yet, but you're 42 years old in this picture, and it was 2 years ago. So you're 44 now. That's how I found out you were probably 44. And here you are with your partner. And I'm not sure how Suki, Suuske, is that spelled correctly?
Yeah, Suska.
Say it again.
Suska.
All right. I wouldn't have guessed how to pronounce it. And with your son Tom, am I seeing that correctly?
Yeah.
And is there a reason he's named Tom? And Tom is 3 years old. And so this is your partner and your son. And when I said something to you, I said, "Oh, you got married." And you said, "Well, not exactly." And that's when I began to realize that you were talking about a partner, not a wife. I've been a lot more successful in partnerships than I have been as a marriage partner. So tell us about that picture.
So yeah, he was 3 when we took that picture. He just turned 5 last week. So he's just crossed a
Incredible.
milestone.
What is his
He's amazing.
sign? Cancer?
He's a he's a Cancer. He's a double Cancer, Sun and Moon Cancer. So he's a
Wow.
feeler, but he's got Sagittarius rising like me, so he's fiery too. It's an interesting mix.
I love that. Ross's wife, Mary, is a Cancer and very, very that passion. My passion comes from my planets in Pisces, and they balance my fiery Aries. They slow me down and say, "Wait a minute, go more slowly, breathe, take it all in." Go ahead, tell us about your partner and your son.
Yeah, so Suska and I have been together 10 years now. Very happy. We live in Amsterdam together. And I also have 2 stepchildren that she has from a previous relationship. They're 11 and 13. So my life is full. And Tom is amazing. I've learned so much from him. And we called him Tom because it's a funny story. Seuss and I were on a holiday together some years ago, and we were walking in France, and we started to tune into the child that we believed we were going to have together. And we both kind of independently tuned in and then shared what we'd experienced. And it was freakily similar. I mean, it really was describing the same soul, the same being. But what we'd also both seen was a girl we both very clearly saw a girl, and we kind of stayed in kind of touch with, felt sense of her for some time, and thought about names. And I can't remember how, but we settled on we wanted to call her Tamsin. So then a few years later, Seuss got pregnant. We were very happy. And then we went for the ultrasound where they tell you the gender. And they said, would you like to know? Oh, yes, please. And they said, you're going to have a little boy. And both of us were shocked because we were convinced it was going to be a girl because we'd felt this when we kind of tuned into the soul or the sense of this being. It looked like a girl. Souls don't have gender, of course. Now I understand. So when we realized it was going to be a boy, we were like, well, what are we going to call him? And one day it just became clear to me. I kind of got some whispers from above. They were like, well, you've already named this child. So Tamsin is the feminine version of Thomas. That's what the name is. And um, it's a, you know, as you know, of course, a very beautiful old biblical name. And so that's Tom.
Very biblical also. Yes. Oh, just incredible, incredible gift. And what does she do? Does she have interest in the same things that you do, or is she professionally involved in other kinds of areas?
Yeah, she has some slightly different paths, but we've shared a path in, I guess, spiritual inquiry or self inquiry. In fact, we first met years before we got together in a qigong and kung fu class with a teacher who is still a good friend of mine. Who he was a very mystical kung fu teacher. It was less about hitting people and more about moving energy in alignment with the patterns of things. So we met in that class a long time ago when I first moved to Amsterdam. Um, and she in fact is the one that's got me deeply into astrology and why I know what things like my rising sign are. I was never really interested in astrology that much, and
And you
she's really
were
into that.
open to it.
Very. I became open. I was always a bit suspicious, and then probably around the time that picture was taken of me and Joel in Jerusalem, I had my first astrology birth chart reading from an amazing astrologer called Mark Borax, who's based in the States. And it was one of the single most life-changing single sessions I've ever done with another person. I mean, just completely changed things. And I was kind of sold at that point. He has a very particular way of conveying it. He doesn't name any of the planets necessarily or the astrological archetypes. He can speak it kind of into your language. He's very skilled at it. So it's only later I got interested in the technicalities and started to learn how this is mapping and what the different archetypes are. But yeah, Seuss has been a great inspiration for me in learning all of that stuff. I have my sun is in Aries like yours, but I have 4 planets opposite in Libra. So I have this interesting mix between my kind of self sense is very fiery and direct. It's in the third house of communication, but I have these 4 planets in Libra in the ninth house of kind of higher philosophy and higher mind. So I'm kind of trying to work out how to communicate all of this vast knowledge that I seem to like have built in or map out, and how to communicate that is, in a way, I think part of the reason I'm here, working out what that looks like.
So it's fascinating that you have the planets in Libra because my access to Libra in many ways comes through Ed, my partner. And Ed always talks about himself as a Libra, and he always believes that he's a Libra and he always balances things, but he doesn't believe in astrology. So there's a paradox there. And let's go to the next picture that you sent. And this is the picture of your book, which has just come out. And Artist Merchant Seeker is the title. But I love the subtitle, Bring Your Whole Capital S Self. to the path, capital P, of work with a capital W. That's the whole shift that I live, and as uh, it fascinates me. So it was just published and took you 7 years to write the book. I found that interesting, very, very interesting. Some of the things in the introduction you said, I didn't have a plan. I didn't really know where I was going exactly, but I knew there was a path, and I knew there would be turning points along the way. I love that part of your introduction. Tell us about the book. And I have my own copy of it.
Yeah,
There
here it is.
it is. There's mine. And
Love
mine is highlighted on every single page with
it.
down in certain places. And the one that just popped out for me right now are the three questions. What do my gifts share most brightly? What do I underestimate about myself? And what's the one thing I can do that would help me shine brighter through these gifts? So um, that's the page I turned down. Go ahead, tell us about your book.
Yeah, it did take, I wasn't working on it for 7 years exactly, but I first started writing it 7 years ago, or slightly 7.5 years ago. And I've known I wanted to write books for a really long time. You've followed my writing for a long time, Marj. I love writing. I've written long stuff. But a book is like the kind of pinnacle of the form of writing. You know, can you write a whole thing? And I so I actually had a full draft written in 2020 during COVID, and then the world went crazy with COVID and lockdown, and then my son was born, and then business at Coaches Rising that I was running at the time got really intense, and one of our partners left. Me and Joel carried on without him. That was a huge transition. He'd founded the company with Joel. So it's a time of great flux. And then running this company, um, we were really early doing online coach training. So, but with really conscious, powerful, transformative coaches. Um, some of the best people we knew, we had them teach courses together, so people would come and do, for example, 3 or 4 months online learning how to do embodied transformation in coaching, bringing in the whole somatic dimension. And so I was running that. Life got really busy, and the book sat on the shelf for a few years. And then 2 years ago, I left Coaches Rising. That's a longer story, but I realized that wasn't the path any longer. And as soon as I knew I was going to go, I knew I needed to finish the book. In fact, my spirit helpers were pretty direct in my ear. You need to finish that book, Ewan. It's really important. You need to finish that book. So that's been the last year or so, finishing it, rewriting things, going through the editing process, working out how to publish it, all of those things. And it feels amazing. Like it's only been out for a month, but whenever I put my hands on the physical copy, I just feel such light and joy. It just has this experience of like such brightness and gratitude, which I don't necessarily always feel about the things I make. I have quite high standards and can be quite a perfectionist and all those kind of things. I just feel such lightness. And so it's a book that, I mean, the ideas in it have really had a lot of time to mature. I've thought through them very carefully. I've road tested things. I've tried to break. It's based on an archetypal model. I tried to break my own model many times, and it passed all the tests. So here it is in book form, and I mean, you've read it, so you could probably speak to it too, Marge. But I'm happy to speak a little bit about the topic and the model. Where would you like to go with that?
Well, I think the three types, the artist and the seeker, are the ones that I could see so easily in myself. And my years, I was at Unity in Tustin during the years that you knew me, and that during the years of launching Living, Loving Legacy, it took me to the pinnacle of success in that realm. And yet, what I realize is that a lot of that involved the path of the seeker. It involved going to ministerial school, it involved learning how to launch a summit, it involved all of that. And the artist is my natural that I was born with, my love of Jesus, my my love of music, my love of art, and beauty, all of the kinds of things that I treasure. And I brought all of those things with me, interestingly, to Kansas City. And I said, stop giving stuff away. This house is big enough to hold all of it. And then when it arrived with the moving van, he said, I had no idea how much you were going to ship, you know. And everything fit into that house that I live in now with Ed. And it's amazing how spirit directs and guides us, and everything fits that is part of the treasures. But the one that I can see that I'm still weak in is the merchant. And I can experience my own resistance to that. And you talk about your own resistance. And I was fascinating that you knew Rand Stegan and coached with him. And he was the one that walked with you through that. And I think that maybe I need to do a few sessions at least with you and walk with you through my resistance there, because I don't do what I do for money. Money is not my motive. My only purpose and my only motive is love. And what I know is that love has the potential to change people's lives, to take them into directions that are higher and deeper, to dissolve the shadows that are blocking them, to reveal the mysteries that are beyond where they are now. And I still have more of that to do personally at 88 years old. How do I know I'm not finished yet? Because I'm still here. And I would not rewrite. One of the things AI told me I should do in my third Saturn return is do a legacy edition of my book, because it was published and it's never been promoted the way it could have been because of the pandemic and other reasons. And I'm really clear, I don't want to do that. What's missing from the book, however, is the fourth act. I finished the book when I was 75 years old. So there may be more to record and reveal itself in the experiencing of the fourth act. So anyway, I'll leave it there and let you say what you see.
The book kind of came out of my intuitive desire and need to like include all of myself in the work that I was doing. To go back to the first thing we started our conversation with, when the internet started coming in and people started, well, around 2008 when I moved to Amsterdam, people were starting to do really interesting things on the internet, and I realized, oh, you can start your own business here. You can be an entrepreneur in a different way now. You don't have to have huge amounts of money to set things up and hire a shop and all. premises or whatever it may be. It's a different game. And so, but I wanted to interface with business in a way that like was still true to my heart and my spiritual path and my creativity. So for a long time, I was working those things out. One of my early successes that I talk about in the book, Waking Up the Workplace, was this interview series, also on instant teleseminar, like yours was, where we interviewed some of the leading figures in the conscious business movement, which was in its very early stages then, I think. So, what happens if you essentially combine consciousness and spirituality in business? Like, what does that look like? Do those things fit together? Through that, I learned that they absolutely do, if you work it right and you do the integration. And so the book is a kind of, in a way, it's a map that helped me resolve lots of inattentions, but it all kind of came together during a period of time where, and Rand was very helpful for me to see some of the patterns. But I realized that there was this archetypal model sitting in what I was playing around with, which is these three archetypes of the artist, the merchant, and the seeker, which I'm suggesting are kind of like core or essential level archetypes for any entrepreneur or freelancer. That they're at the bottom of the work, regardless of what you actually do and the content of what you're doing. And these happen to align with the idea of the good, the true, and the beautiful. Or as Ken Wilber pointed out, that aligns with these universal pronouns of I, we, and it. So these archetypes are speaking different languages. The artist speaks the language of beauty, and its goal is to create things that express through us and actually kind of come from beyond us. Like artists and creatives really are channeling something. It's like they're the vessel and something comes through and they're like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know how I made that. That's how the artistic creative process works. That was something I'd grown up with. I loved that flow state where you made things and it was interesting. That's the artist. The seeker is, of course, seeking the truth. It's on the path, the quest for knowledge and to understand who we are and what the world is, what is the nature of things. And then the interesting one for me to notice is then, well, it's the merchant that speaks the language of the good, which was very confusing to me at first because, like you, I have some natural resistances or suspicions of that archetype. I didn't grow up around business or entrepreneurship. In fact, business and money was seen rather suspiciously by the worldview I kind of grew up in. And yet at that point, I was involved in business and was fascinated by it, trying to do it differently. But I realized it does absolutely align. You can see it in the language, which is, well, what does a merchant trade in? Well, they trade in goods. And so at the heart of that archetype, and I had to do a lot of inner work to kind of really understand this and then be able to embody it more, which is at the heart of that archetype of the merchant. It's about what's good for us. And it creates goodness through exchange and trade and what we would call commerce, buying and selling. It doesn't have to do with money in our modern world, it does, but it's the act of trade and exchange. And from the light of the merchant, therefore, there's this kind of test. Like, if it's good for me as the seller, this is a good deal for me. If it's good for you as the buyer, it's good for you. And it's good for our wider community, then it's just good. Like there's just goodness in that thing. And in our modern economic language, we call that value. And that idea is what kind of drives economics, that we can make an exchange and there's more value afterwards than there was at the beginning. We create extra value and everyone gets richer as a consequence. So the heart of it is beautiful. Unfortunately, we also live in a world where we see the shadow of the merchant very visibly. very visibly. We're kind of living through almost like the ascendancy of the merchant, I think, right now in our culture. Joseph Campbell had this old idea that you could tell what a society valued or where its power lay by looking at the what the tallest buildings were that it would create. And so in olden times, it used to be castles or cathedrals or churches or pyramids. Now it's skyscrapers. So business is kind of in the top seat in our society. And so we see amazing benefits of it. Like we have a thing called Zoom, and you and I can have this conversation with all these other people here from different sides of the world for free. Amazing. And, we see how much some business and commerce is just so exploitative of people, employees, customers, and the environment. That profit comes at the expense of so many other things that are so valuable. So what I saw is that no, but these are three archetypes that if you want to do your work in the world, if you want to make something like you did with your interview series and what you're now running called By Love Institute, if you want to make your own thing and put it into the world, you're going to bump up against these archetypes because they're at the core of the work. And in olden days, we would do one of these and have nothing to do with the others. The monk would be in the monastery doing their thing, the artists in the studio trying to keep it pure, and the merchants are in the marketplace peddling their wares. Now I think we're asked to integrate these. Now I think our modern marketplace is wanting these things to be integrated such that, yes, we're offering services or products that hopefully benefit others, but we do so from a place of depth and spiritual insight and self-awareness and truth and authenticity. And we do so artistically, expressively, like we're in the brand too. It's about us, called By Love Institute is about you. It's an expression of who you are as a person, Marj. And so I think that's the artist archetype, how we express ourselves and discover just what we have to bring. So the story of the book is that we are all those things. They're all in us. We all have native abilities in these to some degree or another, but we're gonna, we tend to be naturally strong in some places and resistant in others. And the path is to work out how you integrate those together in your own expression, like how you want to do your own work.
And I just glanced at the time, and we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to open it up for people who may have questions or comments. I also want to let you know that next month, our guest is going to be Holly Woods coming back. She's been at an integral conference in Boulder and then went to Europe, and she's back. And so Holly is going to be the spotlight guest next month. And really, really looking forward to that. And also, I wanted to mention that there's a place where you can donate a love offering. I love that phrase. It comes from Myrtle Fillmore, a love offering to be part of sustaining the platform of living of called By Love Institute. So let me shift now to inviting people to raise their hands. You can do that by simply waving or going down to the bottom of your screen and using that mechanism to raise a hand. And is there someone that would like to talk with Ewan in person in these remaining 10 or 15 minutes? And Garth is there and has first chance. And then Ross is second. So
That's
you can,
right. I got my finger on the button.
all right.
Uh, and so I just wanted to come in and talk about where our lives overlapped, Ewan, because there are so many places. Um, I grew up before there was computers, so that's. But when computers came along, I was all in. And I worked for a company called the Hypermedia Group that developed software for big companies like Apple and websites for companies like Kaiser Permanente and um, software for companies that worked with hazardous materials. So anyway, I got a really broad uh, foundation in software development there. And so then when they sold and I moved on to something else, I started my own company called Spiritworks Software and developed software for businesses primarily. Actually, I developed software for myself because I wanted to get into a business of my own. And then I decided this is where I ought to be. So I started selling the software. Anyway, so I went from there to Humanities Team, which you may have heard of, is a big international organization of people putting on programs very much like this. And I was their webmaster at first, and then I became a program producer and editor. And recently we parted ways. But in the meantime, I started working for Unity of Salem as their tech guy and running sound and video and live stream and all that stuff. So um, I have a strong spiritual base in my. Um, and then I developed a company that is similar to one of yours called the Oneness Coalition. And we put on semi-annual programs with that were what's the word I'm looking for? Um, anyway, you kind of get the idea. We included lots of different faiths in our presentations. Um, and lately I've just been doing my own thing with videos by Garth. So um, anyway, a lot of overlap there.
Indeed. Great to hear. Thank you for sharing.
Is there a question, Garth, that you want to ask before?
No, I was hoping you'd have a few more things to say about just what I don't know what I should know where I might go next or something. I don't know, but it's that's not really important. I think I've made my point.
What I've found in my own life is that the unknowing often leads me to the next level of knowing. And if I'm not willing to embrace the unknowing with openness and curiosity, I get blocked. And the next level of the revelation that is waiting to come in can't get in
Right.
because I've blocked it. And that's called being stuck.
Fully agree. Absolutely.
Anyway, let's hear from our good friend Ross.
And Ross.
Hi, Ewan. How are
Hey,
you?
Ross.
Yeah, I'm stunned that we haven't met each other. We have so many overlaps. I know Brett, I know Rand Stegan. I was Ken Wilber's lawyer. Jeff Salzman and I did the Integral Center in
Wow.
Boulder.
I went there
I know
once.
Terry
Yeah.
really well. We've been camping together. Holly, who's coming on, was Terry's girlfriend at the end of his life, and all. We have so many interconnections, including Cynthia Bergeau. I've hung out with her, and it's. I'm really kind of stunned that we haven't met each other.
Mm. Well, let's remedy that. I guess we're doing that now. I guess that's what we're doing.
So anyway, it's nice to meet you. I just ordered your book, so I'm going to read your book.
Awesome.
Um, and I guess what I would like to just chat with you about a little bit more deeply is your insight about the artist, the merchant, and the seeker. Okay. That I've been using without using those terms. I've been talking about this in my own coaching and my chats with people that are asking me for help as a three-layer cake. The first layer of the cake, which would likely in your system be called the seeker, I'm calling doing the work, the spiritual work, the work on personal evolution and involution and everything like that. And as you know, that first layer of the cake can take an entire life. You don't, there's lives that do nothing but that. My wife Mary is now in deep into the Vedic system. Just to unpack that system takes 3 years. Unpacking integral takes 3 to 5 years to read brief history of everything and getting to understand it and everything like that. So that's one layer. That's plenty of work. Then the second layer is I've been calling the artifact layer, where you actually create something. So in your instance, creating a book. My book is right behind Marj, Keepers of the Field. I did that same 6,000 hour journey to try to create something beautiful in the world, to bring something into the world and, throw your whole heart into it. And I work with people all the time that are doing that into their ecological projects or their motion picture projects and stuff like that. And then the third layer I've been calling the enterprise level, which is the merchant level, okay, where this now has to work as an enterprise out in the world. Levels 1 and 2 seem to be possible and accessible pretty much in the community that I live in. There's a lot of people that have done their spiritual work and a lot of people that can create an artifact, a course, a book, and all of that. Level 3 seems to be difficult. And I want to ask you the question why it seems to be so difficult. And the internet, which was once the answer, is now you just push it out there and you're just swamped with noise. And everybody's using this funnel model. And everybody's pushing stuff on you. And it's just like my inbox now. People that I love, it's just like it's all extractive. It's like, they want my attention, they want my money, they want my time, they want my course and everything like that. How do you see, and I read John Mackey's books and Matt Mackey and Conscious Business and all of that sort of stuff. And McIntosh is a good friend of mine who's written a book with him. How do you see us being able to break into that level? And frankly, I'm almost given up on the internet because the person to person interactions are so much more generative in terms of it's almost old style commerce. They don't I don't meet them through the internet. I don't exchange through the internet. I give services in direct and private ways based upon private knowledge about them that's not accessible and they don't want to. So talk to me about breaking into this, what I would call this third layer, the third layer cake, which you would call one of the three archetypes that are necessary.
Great question. That's a big one. It's a big question.
One of the things that I was aware of as we were preparing for this call is that a lot of the people have this kind of question.
Yeah.
And it probably will involve some more connecting,
Yeah, it
more
will.
heart space, some more moving into willingness. And it's very, very interesting that one of the things that I mentioned briefly was that today is the day, the day that there is a basket in the sky. And it starts today, and it's been predicted, but it involves Uranus in Gemini, and it is sextile of the moon in Leo, and it is trine Neptune in Aquarius. And there's an opposition between Pluto and Aquarius, and what it's doing, and this is a very rare thing, This basket is an activation. And what Anne Ortley says is it brings hope, it brings creativity and innovation and flow. And it's a good, great, there's the word good. I think of good as what you're talking about of giving and receiving. That's the good for me.
Yeah.
And it's not about a merchant, it's not about a buyer or a seller. It's about a connecting in the way of flow. And where this good energy today for sending your bright ideas out into the world, and we can take back our power for the good of everybody. So this goes from the individual into the I space, into the we space, into the it space. This is huge. And this is the basket. And it's very, very fascinating because the person it was named after called it that and predicted some of the things that would happen before they happened. And fascinating that basket actually was significant, this particular point in time. And the incident of this basket is that it's a bridge. It's about building a bridge of honesty that allows us to be seen fully. It's a bridge that started um, with the first, it's starting with the first of 5 times. And uh, with it just is quite amazing. And it will be nearly exact with the potential for major shifts in the United States in political, economic, and social institutions. So very, very uh, fascinating about this particular time in history. So a lot
Thank
of
you, Marge, for that context. I really think that that might be the answer. The basket metaphor might be the answer to the question that I'm asking. So I don't know, Ewan. I don't expect you to have an answer to this, and I just want to say I wish all of England the best luck on the pitch today. I'm sure the whole town is pins and
Thanks.
needles, about the game. But I just want to kind of open that inquiry to you, and there's going to be, as Mark said, probably a lot of follow on to that because it seems to be kind of the hitch in the get along to me in many ways to be able to take something and monetize it, and so that your own creativity doesn't become extractive, on your life and family and.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. My super. I'm happy to unpack that with you another time, Russ. Like the thing that does come through to me in the moment is, yeah, we are in a time of like massive change. I mean, it's energetic and astrological, but it's market change too. Like AI is just eating everything, and it's populating our feeds with enormous amounts of stuff. Some of which is interesting, lots of which isn't. I mean, like my philosophy is of marketing in this sense is essentially like your game is to try and integrate these archetypes such that how you present yourself is radiating your unique frequency, like your
mhm.
authentic being, who you are, and your soul nature is kind of is transmitted. The frequency of that is transmitted such that then other people can kind of feel like, yes, this is for me or this isn't for me. And if you're only running like mercantile stuff on this, you end up with what we see in our feeds, which is like really clever marketing, but like doesn't have anything beneath the surface. And it's like
Correct.
generated by whatever it's generated by. I think, we call it content marketing. I think it's more useful to look at that content as actually as art. like go and like be the creative self where you don't really know if it's going to work or not, or whether it's appropriate, or whether this is, going to speak to the thing or not. But you kind of discover who you are and how that comes through.
Yes.
That will um, that will transmit your frequency. Which, if you're getting AI to do it, like you can't feel that. The downside of that is it's not a fast game necessarily. Like
Yes.
you got to play this thing at a different pace now, I think, and the temptation is to try and go really fast because of how fast the rest of the world and the marketplace is going. I feel like it's actually a slower game with depth of authenticity in it, and you build that over time. But yes, I would love to explore that more in
Okay.
depth another time. You'd
Well,
be
thank
happy
you for
to.
that. I want to get to Patty, but more to come. It's a pleasure to meet you, uh,
Likewise.
Ewan. Yes, and I'm looking forward to your book. I will close with this. I come from like with Marge is older than I am, but from an era where bringing a book into the house was a big thing. I could remember my first spiritual book. I still have it here in my altar, "The Life Divine" by Sri Aurobindo. We this was at a time when you had to dig for this book. Yeah, what you weren't going to find it on Amazon or anything like that. You had to buy it for the publisher, and it was like secret knowledge even to know the guy's name or that the thing existed. And then when it came into the house, there was a sense that a sage had come into the home. That a presence had come into the home, and I felt the same thing with Brief History of Everything with Ken Wilber and A.H. Almas, Marge's book. Cynthia Bourgeau's work and Evelyn Underhill and the all of that. So I mean that's a little bit of something of the old that I think that we could recover in all this world of distraction. That there may be only one thing that we have to look at. And yeah, you get that one thing and you metabolize that one thing, and that doing that well will get you further than the 500 things that you could snip at.
Yeah,
So you're nodding. You're agreeing with that premise?
totally.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, I'll stand down, Marge.
I notice that we've gone over time, and there's one more hand that's up, which I would like to give Patty just a moment at the very end. But I found that the events that I was looking for in the email that I had received, the person that I did called this the basket was he predicted before they happened, decades before they occurred, the 2020 pandemic, the 2008 economic crisis, and the fall of the USSR in 1989. Predicted all of them based on this particular basket. So we're in an interesting time. And let me go to Patty, and Patty, you'll be our last person.
My earliest memory is God speaking to me. It was God. It wasn't Jesus. It wasn't Buddha. It was God. And I've had that divine direction all my life. So when my brothers were sent to Vietnam, I followed the Presbyterian missionaries who had come from China to my Presbyterian church camp. And I went to Taiwan and I studied Chinese, which got me a job eventually as an international contracts manager for General Dynamics, one of our biggest military suppliers. And because I could speak Chinese, and I found in negotiating contracts that the supplier and the buyer had common goals. They wanted to do a deal, and they might have their own separate issues that had to be revealed to come into contact so you could find a mutually uh, acceptable solution to these divergent ideas. So I thought it was really interesting when our administration went to China recently that they took an entourage of businessmen, because I have great faith in business, which brings people of all cultures working side by side in those cubicles. And then you go to coffee, and then you become friends, and then you bring them to church. And I really have great faith that it's a connector. I use AI all the time. I've written 2 books, having been in Marj's congregation for 25 years at Unity of Tustin. And I think AI is like God revealing us to us. It's a connector. I went to a 4th of July party where I didn't know anybody but the host, and I sat down next to this guy, and he taught me how to do the reminder thing on my phone. So now I don't have to carry little books around to remind me what to do. So I have great faith, and if I feel like if we live in love like March does, um, we don't have to be thinking about the greed, the profit margin. We just enjoy the connection. That's all.
And we are so blessed to have had this time with you, Ewan. It's just an amazing journey. And we're over time, almost 10 minutes, but uh, I, I wanted to hear from everyone who raised their hand. And thank you so much, Ewan, for being with us.
You're so welcome.
It's just, and you and I will have a connection and say, what did it all mean? Where do we go from here? And I would not be surprised if some people who were here on the call, and Patty just said she bought 2 copies of your book.
Right.
And I wouldn't be at all surprised if some people that are on the call or listen to the replay have that same question. Where do we go from here? And that may be an inquiry into another level that Patty's talking about, of people who have been involved in this enterprise level, this business level. My father was a businessman, had one of the largest truck services in Boulder, Colorado. Uh, like, I don't know where I developed the allergy to it, but I certainly experience uh, the awareness that when it goes off track, I don't want to be involved. So there's more to be understood about this, and you and I think um, you're one of the keys. And I think that may be why Spirit brought us all back together. And it's been an amazing gift. And think about uh, uh, the invitation to come and visit the United States again. You've heard it from me and from Ross. So much love, so much gratitude, and so many blessings, blessings upon blessings. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Marj.
Yes.